My name is Max White Jr. My dad is Max White Sr. My mother's name is Serena King. And then the King's name's been here for quite a while. My grandpa, Richard Dick King, they called him. He was on the council for a while too. And on my dad's lineal side, the original name was White Buffalo. I asked him how he got the name White. He said back in the day when the early 20s, the white people are the ones that doing enrollment, didn't want to use their Indian name, so they cut the buffalo off, so that's how come where the original white came from. The allotment people came and gave us that name, so. Well, back in the day, I tried 4 times for the Assiniboine district in the mountains area. I never did win in that category, so this year I said, well, I tried 4 times. I'll try the Assiniboine district, both tribes. I said, I'll try that this last try and see if I make it or not. Only the outcome will tell on that, but the reason I did that is because I know a lot of people from Fort Balnup Agency, Lodgepole and Hayes. A lot of the people that are older now they probably know who I am because I used to be a wildland firefighter back in the day, and I took a lot of them on fires. Then I drove Head Start. A lot of the kids know me. I drove 10 years for the Hayes High School and 10 years for the St. Paul's Mission. A lot of my concepts on the council is, a lot of people don't realize, like the lawyer for the Fort Balnup tribes in reality is not for the people, like you say, for the people. The reason I had a discrepancy about that, I had a workman's comp against housing, and what it boiled down to is the lawyer said we're for the tribes, meaning the tribes themselves, the Assiniboine and Gros Ventre tribes, not as individuals. So that concept, I thought they should always have something else for the people rather than the tribes, because if you stop and think, a lot of the people are not going to be here. Just a lot of our lineal descendancies are going to be left after everybody else gets older. So that was one concept that I always noticed. Like the other one that comes to mind is housing. I worked 10 years for housing. Back in the day, we used to, me and Delmer Walker, we used to work for housing and do a lot of work for people. Belknap. I remember I got called once down there to change the hot water heater, and their maintenance workers didn't know how to change a hot water heater, so I had to go all the way down there and change it for them. I wouldn't change it for them, I'd walk them through it, but now what I found out now is they don't have no plumber and no electricians for Fort Belknap housing, so. Well, I think they should, because the reason I'm saying that they should, because through the years I knew a lot of things that the tribe as a council should do for the people, like I said, individuals, not not say for the Assiniboines or Gros Ventres. They should always say for the people. And I think the water up in Belknap, you'll hear a lot of them talk about the mines. Back in the day, I used to run from Mission Canyon up to the Powwow grounds and back, and I stopped at the North Fork Road, took a drink of water out there, and my hands started swelling up, so I had to I was 10 o'clock in the morning, so I had to run down to I run down far as Devil's Canyon and my hands went normal. The other concept I have about water is I stayed up Pine Grove and I built a fence around my house, and then I set one post and then went to the other one and looked back at the other one. There was drops of oil where that water was. And then I asked my mom, I said, Mom, I said, how did I used to wash dishes for my wife, Shirley White, and she said, oh, I noticed that. Like if you drop water in oil, you see that sheen in there. And then the dish rags that feel like you wiped up spilt oil or something in there. So I told Davy Balgard, how come, what was wrong with the water? They said, oh, that's from the pump from the well. I said, Davy, I said, that pump is concealed. I said, there's no oil in there. So after that, it was never taken care of it. And I used to have fish in a tank. And after they changed that, that's when all that oils and stuff that used to come in the water, make your toilet bowl black, and killed all my fish. So after that, I could no longer have fish at home up around the Hayes area. I think the main goal I always thought about, if you stop and think, I think all the, like, they got all the candidates, had them for quite a while, run for 2 years. My concept is I think they should run 4 years, because, like, say, if I do get in there and then the other people get in, they come new to a project where they don't really know the ins and outs of a council, and they just now start getting used to them by their second year. So I think they should be 4 years would be better. That way you'd have people in the council that know the ins and outs and know what they're doing. That's what I think I could say on that. They don't really know a lot about the water compact and what it's for, where the origin was, and how they end up to what they got to now. So I think what they're coming down to is, as long as they got it, it's for the people, like I said, for them. But the water compact I think you're talking about is mostly the Milk River in that area. More or less it don't affect the mountain areas like Hayes and Lodgepole. So my concept on that is they're not in reality referred to that water project. So it'd be good for the Iitaanɔɔn'i, the river areas, and Strike Reservoir I think would be affected by that. Other than that, that's all I would say about that. If you really think about it, it originated in the early 20s. Felix Cohen originated that and implemented it to the tribes back in then to do blood quantum. Now that I think there's 565 tribes that actually did that, and then what it boiled into, if you stop and look, my concept is, if you look at it, all the tribes, the 2 tribes that's been put in for, like if you stop and think Belknap, the Assiniboine and Grobon, what the idea behind that concept was for them to eventually eliminate their blood quota. See, eventually each generation will be less and less and less. Pretty soon there won't be any full bloods, in other words. Some 15, 16ths, and there's a lot of my grandkids, great grandkids, they got their blood quota cut down so much in reality, it's eventually there won't be no actual members in both tribes. Well, to me, like a personal one, it would have to be like if you stop and say, okay, what do you think about him? What do you, his girl want? What do you think about him? His innocent, Assiniboine, my concept thing is the only difference is the person itself, how you met them or how you meet them, and your concept is were they good or they bad? You'll find that out if you try to say be a friend with a Assiniboine or a Gros Ventre. That's how I go about it. See, I went out took out a lot of firefighters, and I never did say, okay, you're Assiniboine, you fight fire over here, you're Gros Ventre, fight fire over there. On a fire line, they were all equal. Nobody was individual. On a fire, they used to say, well, first squad's first, they're the best. But I would never tell them that till I got on the line. I'd say, you're all equal, so if we were hotlining, the first squad would start, then when they get tired, they just bump up, and the second squad would be first, on and on, over and over, so they're all treated equal. So that's how I think about the people. 100 years. I would say 100 years, the blood quota is going to be so low, eventually, I think there won't be very few individuals that be a quarter degree to be eligible for all of that programs that they have for them. Whereas the 1/8, their example is a treaty. In the 80s, everybody Gros Ventre, Assiniboine, as long as you was a quarter-eighth Indian enrolled, you got in that treaty monies. But if you was an eighth, you couldn't be enrolled. See, so eventually it's going to follow that trend. That's what I think. So. Well, the elders, like I'm one myself, they are different. If you stop and think, the elders now, as you get older, a lot of them can't do anything, or handicapped, or need to, if you look at them, most of them are in rest homes or places like that, but they need to be taken care of more. The reason I'm saying more is like I'm 75, and a lot of my friends that are my age, they passed more or less to alcohol. And as an elder, I think the elders need to do, like I watch what I eat, and I run off and on every other day, and watch what they eat and then exercise. So, but you can't get that across to the elders. It's got to be brought up when they were growing up. So that's how I was growing up. We always worked all the time. We had to go do chores, haul water, empty water, and then we got to go play. See, that's my concept, kind of relate to that. I don't really know, because I live off the reservation. The reason I'm saying it is, you stop and look, a lot of the people that live off the reservation are more or less not entitled to any of them, but they would have to refer back to the education and health, how that affects the on and off people if you live on a reservation or off the reservation. Only thing good I could think about is I went on a fire for a few years, And then I didn't think I was good, but in the end it was all right. As soon as I got off the reservation, I was taxed for federal and state because I never worked on a res. See? So the last 2 years I worked as an engine boss for Ted Sullivan, driving an engine. So what I made them do is have federal and state tax drawn out for me, see. So that was the one good thing I thought. Whether or not, if I worked on a res, more or less they couldn't take federal or state or income tax. That's what my concept behind that was. So. Well, they did a project, somebody did a project on the mountains, and they got maps to shows where there's a lot of gold in the mountains, and nobody never really looked into that. Like there's some people now that still go up in the mountains and pan gold, see. So, and I know there's oil on the res down there by 3 Buttes. So it's the people themselves got to see if the tribe would implement the program to look at that procedure and see what kind of minerals they have. It all depends on what era you were brought up in. Like in my era, my mother, I asked her, how come you never taught me to speak Assiniboine? She said, well, back in the day, she said, I didn't want you to be treated the way I was, so that kind of lost I thought that was unique because like some of the people, like the Crows and the other few tribes, they have their culture, I thought, where they stay with their language that they were raised up on, so we kind of lost that. I think Hayes was brought up by some diplomat. That's how you got the origin of Hayes. How could I give you a good example is like the 3 Buttes. A lot of people call that 3 Buttes, but back in the day it was called Medicine Butte. So I tell a lot of people that because they don't really know the origin. So a lot of the origin is being lost. So a lot of that history is being lost. Well, to me, like I said, I was brought up Assiniboine. And Nakoda, like I said, that concept was put together through the language. There was 5 elders. Remember I told you the history on that? Or each district had their own dialect, in other words. So they switched that to Nakoda. So Assiniboine, to me, is the origin. And like I said, the 3 Buttes area was called Medicine Butte. So those 2 concepts should not be changed.